Hey, podcasters and podcast guests. I'm bringing back a panel discussion that was actually recorded in September when the world was celebrating International Podcast Day. I sat down with Larry Roberts, who is the host of and creator of Readily Random, Ashley Sanders, co host of Girls Ask Guys show, and Dr. Madeline and Ann Lewis, who is the host and creator of Success for Women. We took on the tough subject of should podcast guests pay to be a guest? Well, hot topic indeed, coming from four different vantage points, and we keep it light, we keep it lively, we keep it insightful, and I think that it's worth bringing back because as we go into the new year, perhaps you've been thinking about charging guests to be on your show. Perhaps you've been thinking about paying to guest on a show. Well, we're putting in our input and take a listen. It's lively, it's informative, and it's wide open for you to come and make your own conclusions. But before we get into that episode, the sponsor for this week is PodcastAcademyOnline.com, a virtual academy that graduates podcasters. 7 weeks live, online group session, heavy on how-to instruction, information, and accountability. Graduate with your custom design functioning podcast. PodcastAcademyOnline.com. It was designed with the adult learner in mind. Schedule a free consultation. Visit the website PodcastAcademyOnline.com. Looks like we are going. Okay, looks like the recording has started. Well, hey, podcasters, well, Mel and I, we decided that we were going to take the whole month of September and celebrate podcasters, one-on-one conversations and panel discussions. So I am here with a panel, and I tell you, when I tell you that these folks are not flies on the wall, they are vocal. They are podcasters. And today we are going to talk about pay to play. Some people say, we should charge people to be on a podcast. Nah, that's taboo. I've leaned both ways. But today we are going to hear from Ashley Sanders from Girls Ask Guys show. She's a co-host. And then we have conversations with Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis. Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis here. And Larry Roberts, Readily Random Podcast. So, ladies and gent, I want to open up this conversation with, are there boundaries? Is it okay to charge folks to be on your podcast? What do you guys say? Who wants to open it up? Go ahead, Ashley.
Okay, Ashley.
Listen, I'll charge you if you need to be charged. And I'll feel that out when I talk to you. Because it's not about whether you influence or not. It's about whether you're exhausting or not. Because there are guests that are freaking exhausting. And quite frankly, you got to pay me to talk to you because I don't want to talk to you either other way. I don't. I really don't. And it sounds terrible because, humans are humans and we want everybody to experience the human experience. But some people are just terrible. And you have to tax them for being terrible. You don't get to be terrible for free.
Wow. Oh my God.
I have never heard of a terrible tax.
No, I have not.
The terrible tax.
It's a real thing. Think about it. You don't get to be terrible. Think about how many terrible people there are in the world. Those are the people we need to charge. If you're a fantastic guest and you're a great person, I won't charge you anything. But if you're exhausting and I hate you, but you bring something, you know what I mean? Like you bring something, but you're just exhausting. I'm going to charge you because it sounds crazy, but realistically, there's a terrible tax.
And you know what, Ashley, you come from terrestrial radio where you
Yes.
have the option to do that.
Yes.
When you were with the corporation, you didn't have that leverage. But now that
Right.
you and John are working your own thing, the terrible tax comes in. I love it. What a way
It's
to
a
open
terrible
up.
tax. You don't get
Let's
to
keep
be terrible.
Yes,
Larry,
yes.
Dr. Madeline, what say you all about this?
Well, I tell you what, with my show, it comes on every Thursday, and because of my message, I don't charge individuals that come on my show, but I personally handpick the people that come on because I want them to fit in with the message that I'm trying to put out. And that message, my mission is to help women accelerate the path to success. So I like to bring on guests that will show women that what they're doing, how they did it, so that the woman out there that's looking at them can say, oh my, I didn't know they did it. I can do it too. So I don't charge them. But on the other hand, I have paid to be on, a podcast. But in the same vein, I did it because of the platform. The message was in line with my message, but also the person or the people on there were such that if I appeared on there, it helped not only my message, but it took it out further than maybe what I could have taken it. And
Strategic.
so, yes, exactly. So I don't, there's a large debate about paying to be on a podcast. A lot of people don't feel they should, but I understand what Ashley's saying, the terrible tax. But again, if you're terrible, I'm sorry. You're not coming. You may not come on my show.
We do a lot of statistical stuff. So we need people who are statistical, analytical, and some of them are just honestly terrible.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we have to charge it because it's exhausting.
It is.
And we love them and we understand their purpose. But at the same time, listen, I just can't talk to you for free.
And some people can't explain what they do.
Right.
Like you said, if they're that analytical or something like that, they may not be able to get their point across to the point where it's okay, it's knowledgeable, but it's not interesting. And so I'm falling asleep as you're talking. So
right. And it's also not that they don't get their money back, because they do get their money back.
Mm-hmm.
They do, just by being on the show.
Right.
Larry, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point that you make there, in that they get their money back. And I think that's my biggest reservation when it comes to supporting charging for guests. Because so many times, especially as new podcasters, and that's really where I excel, is helping people launch their podcasts. That's what I do for clients. And we launch it with a purpose, and we have a goal, and we have a direction, and it's not just launching a podcast for a hobby or something along those lines. Okay. So you definitely want to make sure that you're getting a return on that investment. Absolutely. And so many times people don't get that return on that perceived investment. And I think that's a trap that's real easy for new podcasters to fall into. They're thinking, hey, if I go out here and I get on this show, guess what? I'm going to get thousands of new listeners myself, and my show is going to grow. Granted, being on other podcasts is by far the easiest and quickest way to grow an audience. But many times there is that misconception that if I pay this $500 or $1,000 or whatever it may be to be on this show, that I'm going to get a direct return. And so many times that fails to be the case. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I see no problem hiring a company to get you booked on podcasts.
Very much.
But in my opinion, that's two different services there. One, you're paying for the platform. Other, you're paying for a service. They're actually out there and they're finding shows for you to go on. So I'm all about that. But I have a hard time jumping on the pay-to-play bandwagon when it comes to being a guest on a podcast.
Gotcha.
I know.
Even with the terrible tax.
Well,
terrible
Larry,
tax is a real thing.
Will's thinking. I'm wondering. So if we do let people come onto our show for a fee, what should we promise them? Can we promise them anything at all as podcasters?
I don't believe you can. because it's up to the individual as well. I can give you a platform, but as was pointed out just moments ago, if you come onto my platform and you lull my audience to sleep, you're not going to get anything out of it, and it's actually going to end up hurting me in the long run. So
Exactly.
I may pocket a nickel here or there for you to come on the show, but at the same time, what's that doing to my audience?
But
So
why would I publish you?
say again, Ashley, I'm sorry.
Why would I publish that show that is exhausting? That's my thing. Like,
But are you not obligated to publish it if they pay for it?
Yeah.
If they pay for it, yes, I'm obligated. But if I just invite you on because I think you're a good person and I like you, because like I said, we don't charge everybody, but there's some guests we do charge. And if we do charge you, it's because you're terrible and you have knowledge that we don't know. You really
so folks,
are.
if you're listening right now and you are on Ashley's show and she charged you, you might want to do a little personality check there. Okay.
Oh my God.
No.
Like, wow, is she talking about me because I paid her?
It's like, oh, I paid $1,000 to be on Ashley's show. Dang it.
No, you would never. You pay like $10. Literally, our show's like $10.
Okay.
Like, you're not paying a goddamn thing. But what you're paying is, quite frankly, just because you're exhausted.
Exhausting. I have another.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr.
Can I just say one thing? Another thing, I guess the reason why I don't charge guests too, what I said about being in line with the mission, but don't you think when you have them to pay, if your show has a theme or a certain thing that you talk about, then are you picking people that always are in line with that, or you just randomly pick people and have them to come on? Because I think if you have people pay, then somewhere along the line, doesn't that integrity part gets lost? Because then people may say, oh, well, I could just show up on her show and I could be talking about bottling water. You know, there's nothing wrong with bottling water, but my show is about helping women to excel maybe in business or in their careers. And you're coming on telling me how you invented a new way to put water in a bottle.
We make sure people make their money.
But you paid me, so I'm letting you come on.
But the one thing we do is we make sure people make their money back. That's what we do. Whether we have to pay them at the end of the month or not. Like, when we get our check for the podcast, we make sure that they're making their money back.
Well,
That's what's important.
Can I ask, how do you guys do that? Because, I mean, to me, it's the way I see it. And I don't know that we can make a guarantee that we can, even if we promote them on social media or do Facebook ads or whatever, how do we control the return on their investment, even if it's $10?
Me and John only have like one guest every 6 months. We don't have a lot of guests.
Oh.
So it's different where, like, if you have a podcast where you have a guest every month or every week or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't have that. We're co-hosts. It's two of us. We make a podcast happen. But if we have a guest, if we have to pay out of pocket, we pay out of pocket. Because it's worth it to have that person there.
Well, can I ask just one other question? What return on their investment are they expecting?
Maybe 10%. It's not a lot.
I mean, expecting to sell books, or they're expecting to get 1,000 followers, or what are they expecting to get from you guys?
They're usually expecting to get something like maybe 200 followers. It's not a lot. Like, again, they're not getting a lot, but we're not doing too much for them also. So it's a return on your investment.
I'll pay you $10 for 200 followers right now.
Hey.
Give me a Cash App. It's en route.
Give me $10.
I thought that was very interesting because people do have expectations, and I just wonder what
we do more for
they
people than what they're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's who we overgive, because that's who we are, both of us. Gotcha. It sounds crazy, but we love people. And we keep people going.
Do people ever, and I'm just throwing this out for all of you all, do people ever approach you and say, hey, I want to be on your show, and they just really are not the right fit. It's like a square on top of or get this one, get this one. Somebody from one of these companies just sends out something random and they don't know you from Jack. Anybody. How do you all roll with that? Do you just take those people on and say, "Hey, I'm going to charge you"? What do you say about that, Larry?
No, my typical response is, I appreciate you reaching out, and I'm sure so-and-so is a great guest, but I don't feel like they're the best fit for the podcast at this time. If you've got anybody else for me to consider, I'll be more than happy to take a look at their one sheet. So just be very cordial and respectful. But yeah, I get pitched every day.
Yeah, I get that all the time too. I mean, as a matter of fact, you mentioned that, and I was my workout class, my 8 o'clock workout class this morning, and I'm in the back in the back, getting dressed, and the lady sits next to me and she starts chatting. She says, "Oh, by the way, I want to come on your show so I can talk about what I do."
Oh, by the way.
Like, okay, and so I asked her, I said, "What do you do?" And she said, "Well, I sell real estate." I said, "So what's your pitch about that? What are you going to talk about, regarding real estate?" And she says, "Oh, well, we can work that out when I get ready to come on."
People really believe that.
Well, see, and I think that's the industry. I think not enough people understand the impact that a podcast can have on your business and your brand. It's almost just as ridiculous to say, "Hey, buy my new book." Well, I haven't written it yet. Buy it first, and then I'll write it. It's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hear you.
Wow.
At the end of the day, I hear you all standing in integrity and brand protection. Let's speak to that. How did you all determine that I built this out? I'm sticking with it. I'm protecting it like a newborn baby. Ashley, speak to that, please, and then we'll work our way around, because I think this is very important for everyone to understand brand protection.
Yeah. We knew what the hell we wanted. We knew what we wanted. We knew what we wanted people to see. And at the end of the day, that's all we want. We don't care about anything else but what people want, or not what people want, what we want to see. We care about us, and we care about our brand. And our brand is for us. It's not for anybody else. Because Girls Ask Guys Show at the end of the day is Ashley and John talking about relationships. And that's what matters. Whether you buy it or not, that's not our problem. There's 7 billion people in the world. Somebody's going to buy it.
That's powerful. And people need to know that. They need to realize that. That's you made a very important point there. 7 million people. Billion. Somebody's, let's not expect to be all things to all men.
I have no desire to do that.
No.
Listen, me and John are two very opposite people. This man will wear a long sleeve button down to a podcast. I'll wear a t-shirt that says like vegan. The same way we did with yours. Mm-hmm. And we're still two different people who have a very different idea of what life is. But at the end of the day, we want life to be better for other people.
Gotcha.
And if you don't buy it, that's on you. Mm-hmm. But if you do, then we're going to welcome you into our family.
But not out to prove anything.
Absolutely not.
Dr. Madeline, talk to us about your brand and brand protection.
Well, as I said, my mission is to help women accelerate the path to success. And I like to do that by showing them that you can be successful in things that you do, because there are other women out there doing it and you can do it too. And so to protect my brand, even though I focus mostly on women, of course, I've had men on the show too, but the men also are doing things that can be helpful to women. And so I protect it by making sure that the guests, like I said, that I bring on my show, their message is in line with that too, and that they feel passionate about what they do. And when they share that message, someone looking at them will say again, wow, I can do that. I don't have to be afraid. I have this idea. I've been sitting on it for years because I never thought anyone would even want to, like Ashley say, buy it or think about even, doing something like that. And again, showing them how they got started and some of the obstacles they may face while they're doing it or getting there. And so they can then look at my show and say, wow, I can get some real information from that. I can get some real resources from that. That's how I try protecting my brand, because if you come on my show, in advance when you come on, you're going to talk about what you do, how you did it, maybe the struggles that you went through to get there as you were doing it. Because, as any business, anything you do, it's not going to always be a piece of cake. You're not going to just step right into it, or it's going to just fall from the sky. But if you're just sitting on your couch watching it on TV and saying, oh, wow, I wish I could do that. But then you never feel you're worthy of doing it, which a lot of times that's the mentality that women have. And that's the mentality that I be trying to pull out of them. Yes, you are worthy of doing it. Yes, you can do it. So that's how I try to protect the brand, by making sure the message is always on point.
And you do a good job with that also. Larry Roberts, what say you, sir?
Yeah, I think branding is interesting. And I say that because, when I first started podcasting, I tried to hide behind my brand. I didn't want to be up front. I wanted Readily Random to be the brand. But as I grew in the podcasting space, and as I started realizing that people were recognizing what I was saying and was taking to heart what I was saying, along with my guests, of course, I realized that I was more the brand. And then the next realization is that your brand isn't just a picture, an image, a logo, a name. It's how you're perceived. It's how you're perceived online. It's a direct reflection of you and the contribution that you make on a daily basis going forward. And even before I had that realization, Readily Random is a really random name. And that's because when I started off, I had no idea what I was doing. I came from a different podcast background, and I wanted to move into something that was a little more clean, a little more for the masses type scenario, because I had a blue comedy podcast back in the day. If you don't know what blue comedy is, it's the adult comedy. So I changed gears there and went into an entrepreneurship type show. There we go. Say that 5 times fast. And got lost. Didn't realize what I was doing. And I tried to kill Readily Random. I started new shows with more distinct names that said what the show was about. One big win. I mean, that tells you, hey, what are we going to be talking about here? We're going to talk about a big win that I had or my guest had or whatever may happen. Mm-hmm. But sometime in our life, we had a big win. The problem there was, even without producing content on the Readily Random side, it was outperforming the new podcast. I hadn't published an episode in 2 to 3 months on Readily Random, and it was still outperforming One Big Win, no matter how hard I was pushing it. That's because thank you. I'd already established that brand. And so I killed One Big Win, went back to where I was supposed to be in the first place, and embraced that brand and embraced the fact that I am the brand. And it's my actions and my words that really established that brand. So it brought a level of awareness and a level of consciousness that, hey, man, I need to be super responsible with what I'm doing here and make sure that the messages that I'm delivering are the right messages for folks to be able to take action. And as the description of the show says, everybody can live larger than life. So that lesson, although it was a fairly lengthy timeline, that was the biggest lesson that I could learn on branding and protecting my brand.
You guys are teaching today. I love it. I mean, for a person that is new, a newbie on the block, I hope that you're listening, because these folks are just coming with it. One final question for everyone. This thing of pay to play, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But for those that venture out and decide, I'm going to go ahead and take my chances and I'm going to pay to be on this podcast, what is one thing that they should intelligently consider and expect when they do that? My first thought is know what talk to that podcaster, Let's come to an understanding and make sure what they're talking about and what you're
Absolutely.
expecting are realistic. Go hand in hand. Those are just my thoughts. What say you all?
Well, I'm a person of research, so I'm always going to do my research first to make sure if my name is attached to it in any way that it's in line. And so I think that's the one thing they have to do. You have to make sure that you do your research. And if you're doing it for a specific reason because you want to be on the same platform with an influencer, or because you're trying to get more followers, then you need to know that in advance. And if that's your reasoning for doing it, then you still have to do your research, because what if the podcast say, I can get you such and such, but like Larry said, that just doesn't happen. So I would say make sure you do your research, make sure you know what you're getting into and what you're attaching your name to.
Ashley, Larry?
I would just second that. Exactly the same thing there. Make sure that you're going in with balanced expectations. Know the stats behind the show that you're paying to be a guest on. Know the audience. Understand going in that paying X amount to be on the show isn't going to guarantee you any results whatsoever. And then even more so, make sure that if you do make this investment and you do get placed on this particular show that you're after, you have a message. Your message is clear and concise, and you can actually deliver that message in a way that's going to resonate with that particular podcast audience.
Sounds good.
And I would say, what does it matter? What does it matter to you? If you're going to pay, you're going to pay. It's everything that we do. We pay to play every single day of our lives. So what are you paying for? Why do you want to pay it?
I'm sorry, we leave the door open for people to pay. We leave the door open for people to not pay.
Absolutely.
There's no wrong.
There never will be.
This has been wonderful. We could go ahead and talk about this. I have a ton more questions. I really, really do. Yes, Ashley.
I was going to say high five, everybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a high five. You did some good work. You did some good work. That's why I was high-fiving.
This conversation had to be because it's in the back of every guest's mind. It's on the mind of every new podcaster. Have you noticed how many podcasters are jumping in here? How do I make money? I'm going to do it this way. And we have to be realistic about it. We have to be realistic
Sell your
about
products.
it. Yeah.
You sell your products. You don't sell yourself. You sell your products. Because at the end of the day, you are great. Your brand is great. But people want to buy from you. They don't want to buy you. You're not you're not an effing prostitute. Does that make sense? You're not a prostitute. Sell your product. You don't sell you.
Now, Ashley, when you make that statement, you're really speaking to the podcasters, because when we're chasing after sponsors and we're going for monetization, most of us have books, products, services that we can sell, that we can put out there instead of, and that's a viable way of making some money. We're not going to get into that because we will be here another 30 minutes. My mind is already churning on that, But I want to thank you all. Ashley Sanders from Girls Ask Guys Show, Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis, Conversation with Dr. Madeline, and the one and only Larry Roberts, Readily Random Podcast. I thank you all so much. Wow, this is great. This is what Hey Podcasters is all about. Hearing from the podcasters, the guys and ladies who are in the trenches each and every day. Do you all, and let's not elaborate. I have to ask you one other question. I personally believe that we brought people through COVID. We were their friends, their advocates. What say you all? Larry, I see you shaking your head. 60 seconds. What do you think?
No doubt about it. I mean, if you just look at the numbers and the growth of podcasting over the last 12 to 18 months, it's obvious. It's all right there. I mean, we grew by over 1 million podcasts just in that amount of time. Podcasting is here. It's not just a COVID thing. It's here to stay. And that's the great thing about it is not only do we help people through this particular time, but podcasting allows us to establish relationships with our audience. It brings us closer to each and every one of our listeners. And that's what I love about it the most.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. I mean, people, especially during, like you said, during the pandemic, when people were stuck at home, I think those things were the go-to, the podcasts, different things like that, virtual conferences, those were go-to events. And so we made life better. I will just say it. We did. We made life better. And that's a good thing.
People had no one. And then they had someone. People had no one.
Yeah.
And then they had someone. And even if you were married, and I realized this during COVID, sometimes people didn't like their wives or husbands as much as they thought they did.
Yeah. And now we're stuck at home with them.
And then they were stuck at home, and now they're like, I have somebody to talk to. And whether you answered us back or not, you had somebody to talk to. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
That is so true. I tell you what, you guys have just made this conversation. I knew that it would be fab. I knew it. So thanks again. And, we're going to house this over at the Hey Podcasters website. Everybody will have a chance to scurry on over there. I thank you. A million thank yous. And wow, the festivities, they continue on. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.